Together, we're exploring the intersection of faith, biology, and the signals that shape how we heal.
You'll hear conversations about nervous system safety,
peptides, and cellular communication,
prayer, trust, and what it means to live aligned with design.
No hype,
no pressure,
just curiosity, relationship, and truth.
Welcome to Prayer and Peptides. This week, we're talking about intention. So comment the word softening as the word of the episode. When you type it, you're not only just supporting the channel, you're declaring your posture that you're choosing for this week. It helps this message travel further, enters you into our giveaways, and anchors this conversation in action. Before we begin, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Take a breath. In, release those shoulders. They're not earrings. Wiggle it out a little bit. And a long exhale. Force it out. Sometimes, especially those of us that have chronic illness, label the enemy as pain. Label pain as the enemy. So we need to take a pause. Notice your body right now. Is there tension in your neck? Is there pressure in your chest? Is there a dull ache somewhere that you stopped paying attention to? Is there something that's screaming at you as soon as you stand up? That's typically my signal. So inflammation begins as protection. I have had to learn this lesson the hard way, which is why you've heard over the last couple of weeks how I live in the overflow, how I live right there at threshold. Inflammation wants to protect me. It wants to tell me that something is off in my body. It becomes distress when it's never resolved. It becomes distress when we ignore it. So what if your body isn't attacking you? Now, I say this with a little caveat. I have lupus. My body is absolutely 100% attacking me. But for those of us that live in just regular stress, everyday life, overdoing all the things, your body's giving you signals and it may not be attacking you. What if it's trying to guard you? If that question resonates with you, comment softening.
Inflammation is not betrayal. It's the body's alarm system. And when injury, stress, or overload occurs, inflammatory signaling activates to protect tissue and initiate repair. But when signals never complete, protection becomes chronic. And chronic inflammation feels like persistent tension, brain fog, joint discomfort, irritability, fatigue. And the body adapts to these repeated signals. If stress is constant, the alarm stays active. And it's not because it's failing, it's because it's guarding. If you ever thought, my body's working against me, tap like for a moment. Reframing that belief changes how you feel. All right, ladies. So have you ever blamed yourself for your symptoms? Like if you've had like some painful symptoms or you're achy or you're tired, like have you ever blamed yourself?
I blame myself all the time. I mean, we already have learned how my brain works, that I'm positive with everybody else, but I'm really negative overthinker about myself. I'm kind to others, give them grace. I don't give myself grace. So I'll be like, oh, you did too much, or all the things. And with my autoimmune, I sometimes don't listen to the signals like we've talked about. And then I feel guilty that I didn't listen and I didn't pause, and it can take me down. I also feel guilty about sometimes and blame myself when I don't do the steps I need to take for self-care. And then it like affects the people around me. So I do blame myself when that happens, and it can be a vicious cycle unless I'm like called out on it sometimes, like, okay, you need to rest today. You need to stop. And then I feel guilty for stopping, but I do. It's like one of those things where you know you're supposed to do it and you would tell your best friend to do it, right? You would tell somebody else to, but you're like, well, it's my fault. I did this anyways. So yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah, I blame myself if I don't go through my checklist of, okay, did I work out too much? Did I do too much at the gym? Was I overstimulated? So being in an environment where there's lots of noises or LED light or all of these things, like that can overstimulate me and send me into a stress response. Did I eat gluten? Did I have too much sugar? Did I get a seed oil? Did I think about something and stress about something too long? Like there's all of these things that I have to run through my checklist. So even if I am not doing any of those things that trigger that, and I am doing the rest and taking my supplements and doing all of my therapies and all of my things that support me feeling my best, I can still have a flare. And that is the most frustrating thing.
I think I would agree to all that too. I definitely, for myself, feel like I blame myself for my symptoms. If my back hurts, it's because I stood too long and I worked too hard. If I'm tired, it's because I worked too hard. If I am hungry, it's because I didn't eat all day because I was too busy to eat. Like there's always something that, I guess you shouldn't say always, but I feel like most of the time there's always something I did that created something that's kind of like hurting me. If I didn't sleep good, then that makes my day start off bad. Like I always had these symptoms, and it's because of something that I did or did not do.
I think about inflammation, and when I knew we were going to talk about this episode, I was like, oh, I can live this. I do this every day. And it's me. Inflammation is all the signals coming out at me. And it involves immune communication. And it's telling me something. Do I always listen? No. Should I listen? Absolutely. And when repair is incomplete or stress persists, inflammatory pathways remain elevated. And over time, that can affect so many things. And it's like screaming with bright lights. It's me. And it's mood stability, right? It's your energy levels. It's cognitive clarity. Oh my gosh, the brain fog, all the things, and sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. And I didn't really know. Lauren spoke in another episode about her Oura ring. I didn't know how important it was on sleep, and I started tracking it. And when I really started listening to those signals, certain things happened for me. Also, when I added certain peptides to my body, certain peptide signaling supports calming inflammatory communication, not suppressing the immune system, supporting resolution. When signaling improves gradually, not like with a snap of a finger, people often start to notice reduced tension, greater ease in movement, and a sense of internal softening, not dramatic relief, steady quieting. Before we move forward, drop a quick comment. Where do you notice inflammation showing up most? Physically or emotionally? We genuinely read those responses. They shape future conversations.
Emotional inflammation mirrors physical inflammation. Unresolved offense, chronic stress, suppressed frustration. You know what that all feels like. You are probably dealing with that. And when I said those words, something came to mind. I need to change something. I need to have that conversation. I'm carrying this around one-sided. These things activate protective patterns internally. And scripture doesn't shame pain. It invites it to surrender. When we are beaten and broken and frustrated and scared, that is the time that, again, we need to walk up to God, put our hand up and say, Daddy, take it. I need your help, right? And he is there to do it every single time without fail. So resolution in these emotional things restore. You feel better. I'm a people person. If I have offended the person at the grocery store, I will go back and I will apologize. Like, it keeps me up at night. So imagine how someone within my inner circle or someone that I do life with, if I am not good with them, I can't sleep and I become a very sick, emotionally sick person. Like, I'm cranky, I'm crabby, I'm like I need to get that out and resolve that. So just as the body resolves inflammation when repair completes, the heart softens when restoration occurs. And I need that. I need to have, whether things I can forgive them, things can be reconciled, but they may not be restored. They may not go back to before the incident happened or whatever. There's just some things that are big, right? And we can forgive, that's our piece. And then it's up to God to reconcile us and then restore us, if that's the direction that we want to go, and both parties want to move in that direction. And we might not always get that resolution part, and that's okay. Protection becomes peace when it's no longer needed. Have you ever thought about that? Like, you don't pray for protection and peace when you have it. We don't pray for the extra paycheck when our bank account is flush, right? We don't pray for health when everybody's healthy. We also don't pray for sickness either. That's just one of those things that we need to work through, those emotional stressors. So what has been some emotional tension that you've been carrying around that is like banging around inside your body and you can feel it?
Yeah, I think emotional tension does kind of like stick around for a long time, right? And unless you really go through some good trauma resolution, it does stick around and it attaches to certain organs of your body. It can make you sick on the inside. And it literally feels like poison. It feels like you have this poison inside of you. And until you get it completely out, you will always have this poison inside you. And so, resolving could be having a conversation. But like there are times and there are moments that you're never going to get that conversation or you're never going to get that apology. You were just saying that earlier. And, as you were saying that, I mean, I'm thinking in my mind, like all these different scenarios that I've, experienced throughout the years where you want the apology or you need the apology and you're just never going to get it. And I've had to go back and think, does the apology really validate how I feel anyways? Like, do I really have to have the apology? It's like we really want the apology because we want to know that that other person feels bad. We want to know that they recognize their actions really hurt me. But at the end of the day, do I really have to have that? Like, I know that how I felt was valid. I know what I went through was valid. And right now I'm really thinking about an experience that I had with an ex. He was an ex-fiance to me, and we were actually going to get married twice. He proposed to me 2 different times. The first time we were engaged for about a year. And I was like, I can't do this. This is not going to be good for the rest of my life. There were just a lot of things that were starting to come out, secrets that were hidden. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my trust just went out the window and I felt scared. And I'm like, I can't do this just because I already said yes to him. And so we broke up. And a year later, he comes back into my life and he's like, I've changed and I've healed and I've done this. And he said all the right things and charmed me all over again. And we get back together and I give it a second chance, because everybody deserves second chances, right? And all the same things that happened the first time around happened a second time. And he proposed to me a second time and I said yes a second time. We prepared for a wedding a second time, put money into this a second time. And yeah, he had a double life. And I was like, I can't do this. And so we didn't get married for the second time in a row. And there was a lot of hurt there for a long time. A lot of hurt because of the actions that he had was very hurtful to me. It caused a lot of mistrust. And when you really care about somebody and you love somebody, you don't expect someone to just lie to you and betray you. And it took a long time for me to heal. But also because I didn't heal properly, I kind of like brought it into my new relationship, which was with Peyton, my husband now. And there would be moments that he would do things or say things that would trigger me. And I would think back to what happened previously to me in a previous relationship with a totally different person. And my husband now has none of those qualities that hurt me in that previous relationship. But I would yell at him or I'd get upset or I'd blame him out of fear that he was doing the same thing to me that my last relationship did to me. And so it was like this poison was inside of me and this resolution was I had to come up with some type of resolution. So like I wouldn't keep this pattern going. It was unfair to Peyton for me to like constantly be mad at him. He didn't do anything wrong. And I'm literally getting mad at him out of fear for what my previous ex did to me. And so I never got an apology from my ex. I knew that I was never going to get one. And there was so much hurt there with so many other people involved. Even my church was involved in that last one. It was really hard. And at the end of the day, the resolution really came from God. It came from my faith. I had to give it to him and I had to feel like I was valid by him. Like he's the one that judges me and he judges my character and he knows the motives of my heart. I mean, that's scripture. And I had to be okay with knowing that I was loved by God and that I was forgiven and for all of my parts in my last relationship and that I'm healed from it and I can move on. And this is not my identity and this is not something I carry. It's not baggage. It's an experience and I learned a lot from it and I can move on from it. And that is like where a lot of my trauma resolution happened. It was with God. It was with, prayer and it was with really great support. But sometimes like that emotional tension stays and it lingers and it like moves from person to person or from instance to instance or scenario to scenario, however you want to say it, until you actually heal it. And I think that I heard one time that you're not truly healed. I actually learned this from John Maxwell. So when I went to one of his conferences, I'm in part of his mentorship program, and there was somebody that asked him a question, and she said that she was trying to become a motivational speaker, but she was speaking upon something that she just continued to cry about all the time. And he said, not to hurt your feelings, but you're crying because you're not healed. You're crying because you're still hurt. You're crying because you're still processing. You're crying because you're still going through those moments. And he goes, there's nothing wrong with that. Take the time that you need, but you know that you're healed and you can actually move on when you can actually speak without crying about it. And I really remember him saying that, and I thought, that is so true, because for so long I couldn't speak on certain things. Couldn't talk about my dad's death. I couldn't talk about like this guy that I was going to marry and I didn't marry. All of that happened at the same time. It was a lot. And for a long time, I mourned and I grieved and I cried. And I think also like crying was healing in itself, like being able to just cry it out. Sometimes like a really good cry will make you feel really good. And it's so weird because it's so sad when it's happening, but it's just, I don't know, it's like freeing. Does that make sense? Do you guys feel that way, or is that literally just like a weird thing that I feel?
No, I definitely think a good cry helps a lot and releases the tension. And I heard what you just said, and it was similar to like the episode where I broke down, right? Anna had asked a question and I had to say, I need to forgive myself. I need to forgive myself. And a lot of times when I still feel that tension is because for something or whatever happened in a scenario or situation, if there wasn't closure or if there wasn't peace, or I felt like somebody in either side, whatever it was, did not feel settled, maybe not agree, but there was still either hurt feelings or what, I'm going to overplay that. And I'm going to hold that tension on me because that's how I am. And even if I get quiet about it, it doesn't mean I'm over it. And I do have those tears behind closed doors. And I do have those moments where I lay in bed and think about different things that I haven't forgiven myself for or haven't forgiven the other people for, whatever it is. And it's like Anna said in another episode, you wake up in the middle of the night and that's what you think about. She talked about, something that might have happened in second grade that comes back to you in those moments. But that tension is real. And I think you are being very vulnerable about what you shared. And I love that you said once you're able to speak on it without tears, you're starting even more of another step in the healing process, because no one wakes up in the morning and says they want to have a bad day. And no one wakes up and says they want to hurt anybody, at least not the people that I want to surround myself with.
When discomfort lingers, the instinct is suppression. Silence the signal, override the pain, push through. Man, the amount of times that I push through, I just keep pushing, and it's like I'm trying to survive, right? But suppression is not resolution. Suppressing it and just not acting upon it, not talking about it, that is not resolution. Listening is. Control tightens the system. Softening allows it to complete the cycle. If this conversation is shifting how you think about inflammation and recovery, subscribe and stay with us. The next episode builds directly on this foundation. This week, notice tension without judging it. Ask quietly, what are you protecting? Breathe into the area that feels tight. No forcing, just curiosity. I once had a massage. I know I've talked about my massage therapist a lot, but this really does remind me of this. Like when I've had a pain before on the massage table, she has worked and she actually encourages me to breathe. So if she's working on my shoulders where I'm really hurting and I have a lot of pain, which this happens a lot for me, she will tell me, she'll work it and she'll massage, but she will also tell me to engage in the massage by breathing. She says, I want you to breathe in, and when you breathe out, I want you to pretend that you're breathing out oxygen. I mean, you're not breathing out oxygen. You're breathing out, nitrogen, right?
The word you're looking for is carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. You're breathing carbon dioxide out. So but she wants you to breathe in oxygen, and she's like, I want you to pretend like you're sending that oxygen to the area that you hurt. So when she's massaging my shoulders, she's asking me to breathe in and breathe oxygen to that area, because that oxygen is actually going to help release the tension in my shoulders or wherever the area that you have pain, and it's going to make you feel better. And so just like this, you're going to breathe into the area that feels tight, and you're not going to force anything. You're just going to have some curiosity and let the softening become awareness.
Peptides act as messengers. When inflammatory signaling is supported consistently, people often report improved comfort, greater flexibility, enhanced recovery, a sense of internal calm. Not because the signal was silenced, because it was resolved. Resources are in the show notes if you're exploring. Comment the word of the episode, softening. We appreciate the thoughtful engagement, and we'll continue this conversation next week.
If something in today's conversation stirred you, send it to the person who came to mind. That's how this message moves, person to person, and we can't do it without you. If you want to stay connected, go ahead and subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. All the resources and goodies are linked in the show notes, and we'd love to continue the conversation with you over on Instagram. Until next time, stay prayerful, stay curious, and keep listening to the signals. The content shared on Prayer and Peptides podcast is for educational, informational, and inspirational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease, nor is it a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Discussions around peptides, nervous system regulation, stress, sleep, hydration, and wellness are presented as general educational concepts and reflections on the body's design, not as medical recommendations. Always seek the advice of your physician, a licensed healthcare provider, or qualified medical professional regarding any medical condition, symptoms, medication, supplements, or health discussions. Never disregard or delay seeking professional medical advice because of something you heard on this podcast. The host and guests of Prayer and Peptides are not acting as medical providers. Any personal experiences or stories shared are anecdotal and not intended to imply guaranteed outcomes. Spiritual reflections, prayer, and scripture-informed insights are offered as relational and supportive practices, not as replacements for medical or mental health care. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are responsible for your own health decisions and that Prayer and Peptides assumes no liability for actions taken based on the information presented.